Welcome to week 2 of the new format of the Spurs Insider podcast on expressnews.com. I am Mike Finger. I'm joined this week by Jeff McDonald again and Nick Talbot, our sports editor. And we are going to sit here in this room full of black egg crates on the wall that is designed for optimal audio pleasure. And we're going to talk about free agency, which has just started this week, and the Spurs are not exactly major players in that, but there have been some moves made, and the Western Conference is being reshaped, and the NBA is as well. And Jeff, we will start with you. What did the Spurs do, and was it what we expected?
They're done. They're done. Finished. So let's call it a podcast and let's get out of here.
What did you expect them to do? What did they do, and how did those two things kind of compare? The least unexpected thing that they did was re-sign Rudy Gay. I think we all thought that would be the first thing they did at 5:01, and then we were pretty much on the money, except for it actually happened before 5 o'clock. So, because apparently that moratorium,
it's mythical
for show.
Yeah, yes. It's for show. So, yeah, we all knew that they're going to re-rec Rudy for reasons we can get into later. And then they didn't have a whole lot of money to play with after that. So I think bringing in DeMarre Carroll, a guy that fills a spot that they were trying to fill, makes some sense too.
Two restrictions on the Spurs that we kind of have to spell out for people who aren't capologists or NBA complete nerds. On the one hand, there's the salary cap, which the Spurs are an over-the-cap team. On the other hand, they already had 13 guaranteed contracts going into next year. You can only have 15 maximum. So they had two open spots, which were basically filled by Rudy Gay and DeMarre Carroll. And they're an over-the-cap team, which means that all they had was a $9.2 million exception to fill that 15th spot. People are going to look at the dollar amount on Rudy Gay, 2 years for $24 million? 32 million, and think that that's outrageous. But one thing to understand is you could not have said, okay, we'll give Rudy Gay $10 million and then give the extra 22 to somebody else, because go ahead.
Because you can't do that under NBA rules.
Right.
Yeah, it would have made it any
because
difference.
Because you're over the salary cap.
They could give him $40 million and it wouldn't have done anything because they controlled his rights. And
right.
That's why you can go over the salary caps on your own guys.
There's a lot of legalese in this. There is something called bird rights, named after, I believe,
Tweety Bird,
the movie Birdman.
Birdman.
I don't think it's either of those things.
It was named after Chris Anderson.
It was named after Chris Anderson, or perhaps a former Boston Celtic. And basically,
Robert Parrish.
Basically, that means that teams are allowed to go over to the cap for certain free agents, and Rudy Gay was one of those bird rights free agents, which means that, not to sound too repetitive, but we get the same questions over and over and over again throughout the year, and are going to this year. The first time Rudy Gay has a bad game, somebody will say, why didn't the Spurs give that money to name your guy on the Hawks or whoever? And the answer is, they could go over the cap to sign Rudy Gay for that amount of money, but that money could not have been used to sign Bojan Bogdanovic or DeMarcus Cousins or whomever. They had that amount to spend on Rudy Gay. They spent it. And by the way, Rudy Gay's been a great Spur.
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of been lost in a lot of this lately.
Absolutely. I think the way to the easiest way that I've found to explain it to people is their choices were you could have Rudy Gay and a mid-level player, or a mid-level player and a veteran minimum player.
Right.
And obviously the talent is in the first choice.
Right. If Rudy does not sign, they have two open spots and still just have the $9.2 million to split up between two guys.
Right.
So with Rudy in the fold, they have him in the 14th spot, and now they can use that 9.2 on one spot, and they used most of that on DeMarre Carroll. What do we know about DeMarre?
Played in Brooklyn last year.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't get to play with Kevin Durant now.
Right.
3-and-D guy, which is something that they really lacked last year. He's sort of in that Danny Green category. When they lost Danny Green, it was kind of Danny Green, DeMarre Carroll. Not when they lost Danny Green. I'm confused now. When they re-signed Danny Green and all the Spurs fans that now want Danny Green back, were all like up in arms because they're paying Danny Green a whopping $10 million a year several years ago. He and DeMarre Carroll and Kent Bazemore were like the the 3-and-D guys that were all in that kind of class. And so now they've a little late. They're getting DeMarre back to kind of take that.
Yeah, and they're not taking Danny Green because he's sitting there waiting around Kawhi Leonard. Because if the obvious choice is there, go to Toronto, win another title. You're going to be the favorite. Golden State just broke up. Kevin Durant's not playing next year, so Brooklyn's not the favorite next year. So why not just go back, get the band back together? And that's one reason the Spurs went after Carroll and not Green right after that, because you'd have to wait, and then you risk not getting anyone.
Right, and I'm not even sure Danny Green fits on this roster as well as DeMarre Carroll does anymore, because DeMarre is now it's almost shocking to hear it, but he's like a part-time 4, part-time 3, and that's exactly what the Spurs needed with that spot, was somebody to kind of fill in on the wing as a 3, and they also just need guys to throw out there 3-and-D type power forwards. And that's, I mean, whether or not he's going to be a star here or even be a major part of the rotation is yet to be determined, but that's the position that the Spurs needed with this signing. One thing on Danny Green, Nick had mentioned about why the Spurs did not go after him. Our old buddy Brad Townsend, who covers the Mavericks for the Dallas Morning News, on his Twitter this week, he has been inundated with fans demanding why the Mavericks aren't signing Danny Green, and I just think it's hilarious for that fan base. Like, one fan base in particular thinks that Danny Green is the key to the offseason, and for so many years he was just the pariah here in San Antonio. He was the whipping boy, the guy that Spurs fans love to blame for things, and now in another market not too far from here, that's the guy they want. It's kind of great.
I mean, he made $10 million a year.
Right.
Should get more for your bang for your buck for $10 million whole dollars.
Yeah. On the note of Danny Green and the role that he used to fill with the Spurs, when you look at the backcourt as a whole in San Antonio, now that free agency is, for all intents and purposes, over for San Antonio, what is the backcourt rotation? What is that outlook looking like into the season?
I have no idea.
A lot of guards.
A lot of guards. And that's why I still are clinging to this notion that maybe they move off of somebody at some point. Because there's just too many guys you want to play that you can't. And as much as you want to say good problem to have, I mean, it's still an overabundance of guys that you need to play. I don't know, does you're getting DeJounte Murray back. Does Derek White still start? Do you move him to the 2? Do you move DeMarre to the 2 where he really belongs and play DeMarre Carroll at the 3? I don't know.
It's I've gone back and forth on this, and I think the default position here is what you mentioned, a good problem to have. And because I think what the Spurs have that a lot of teams around the conference don't have is experienced and athletic and talented depth. And whereas, like, you go to LA, the Lakers, where they have 3 guys on their roster right now. If one of them gets hurt, who's stepping in? I mean, clearly the Lakers' upside is 20 times higher than the Spurs. The same with, the Warriors, the Rockets, whoever. But so many of those teams are kind of on the brink of disaster if the wrong guy gets hurt. Going into the season, if the Spurs have anything going for them, is they can survive an injury to name your guy and kind of be okay with it. And if this means that Patty Mills doesn't play as much as he used to, and Marco Bellinelli doesn't play as much as he used to, that's fine. And those are fine guys to have as your third stringers, or guys on the end of your bench. If a deal makes a lot of sense to where you trade with some of those guys, great. But I don't think Pop or RC Buford would have any problem going in to training camp with the team they have now. And
you think that Patty and Bellinelli are the guys that lose the minutes. I mean, on paper, that's what it looks like, but you never know how that works in practice. I know they want to play Lonnie Walker more. I know they do. As much as like people on Twitter would think Pop hates young players and never wants to play Lonnie and he's going to be in Austin all year. I know they want to give him a chance to earn some minutes and show what he can do. But to do that, you can't give minutes to Patty Mills and Marco Bellinelli.
I have a feeling it'll all work itself out.
Yeah, I think the team looks a lot more like the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets, who both had spectacular seasons the last few years. So you're talking about depth teams versus your big superstar teams. You have a glut of guards, and this is now a positionless league. Doesn't matter if you're a center, doesn't matter if you're a power forward. And DeMarre Carroll's 6'7", 6'8"?
6'8", yeah.
6'8", and he's playing the power forward position in the NBA. That's kind of unheard of. I mean, the 76ers kind of went away from that. They're going super big, where they have a 6'10" point guard in Al Horford now, but everyone else has gone much smaller. And I think, whether you have a glut of guards, it doesn't really matter. DeMarre can play the three. You're going to play 3-guard lineups more than you would have been in the past.
That leads to another question I get on Twitter a lot lately is, you only have one real five. You only have one center. How can you get by with one center?
Yeah.
It's like, welcome to 2019. That's how.
And I believe even though the Spurs started Aldridge and Pirtle a lot together last year, where Aldridge was technically the 4, I think if you look at it minute by minute, Aldridge played more minutes at the 5 than he did at the 4 last year.
That's probably fair. Yeah, once in the guts of the game is sure, exactly.
So I mean, really, those are your 2 centers. And if you need a third one, find a Metu or a Eubanks at the end of your bench that can fill in every now and then. But those are your 2 centers, are Aldridge and Pirtle, and then. At the 4 position, you can have Rudy Gay or DeMarre Carroll or Davis Bertans or all, up and down the list. They're going to be fine in terms of size and in terms of depth. As Nick was alluding to, this is not a superstar team. If we get into realistic expectations now that this roster has been settled, so many teams in the West got better, including teams that didn't make the playoffs. It's still going to be a fight to make a playoff seed, but I think the Spurs kind of settle in there as a team that's probably going to be right there in the mix for 6, 7, 8, if not even higher than that, and it'll be kind of similar to what we've seen the last couple of years.
I think they can actually be a better team than they were last year and win fewer games.
Sure. Yeah,
absolutely. With the way the free agency just uprooted the entire league this Sunday, it was just crazy going through all these trades and these four team trades. $3.5 billion spent or something like that over so many players. Everything was changing, whether it's the East or the Lakers. I think the only team that hasn't done anything, the Lakers. I mean, it's just kind of weird.
They just added Anthony Davis. That's all they did.
They added Anthony Davis.
One of the 5 best players in the world.
Yeah.
Teams that missed the playoffs last year include those Lakers. The Mavericks, who added Porzingis, and they're still probably not there yet, but that's a pretty good duo in Luka and Porzingis. New Orleans is going to be, I think, really fun, and maybe not ready to win right away, but that team is loaded with a lot of guys who can play. Not just Zion, but all the guys they got from the Lakers can play a little bit. They did really well in the draft, and they add guys like Kyle Korver and it's
JJ
Redick.
Kyle Korver's in Memphis, isn't he?
Yeah.
JJ Redick.
Getting your white.
Yeah, they added
confused.
a lot of shooting to that team, which when you have people like Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday, it's very needed, and they're going to be an exciting team to watch.
And then people forget Sacramento was right there until March last year. They were a threat into March. So it's just Phoenix is the only team you can kind of beat up on in the West.
Yeah. Phoenix signed Ricky Rubio, and but yet, it wouldn't be a shock to see any of those teams at least compete for a playoff spot. And so the easy wins are few and far between.
What you got to do then is who drops out, and it's like Golden State, I guess.
Maybe
it's not. It's not going to be Golden State.
Yeah. You don't think so?
I don't think so either. I think
somebody's got to fall out.
If the Clippers don't get Kawhi, that's a possibility.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, Russell, I think, was a completely unexpected signing, but I think it puts him right back in the playoffs. They still have a big 3. It's not the same big 3, and it's not going to be a 73-win team. But I still think they can win 45, 50 games.
I don't know in the West.
If you go,
they still have Curry.
If you go based on where all the teams in the West were last opening day, I think the only 2 that are noticeably worse are Golden State, just because they lost Kevin Durant. Klay Thompson's going to be hurt. They're not going to be as good as they were. And Minnesota. Jimmy Butler's gone.
Forgot about them. Yeah.
Like every other team in the conference is better now than they were a year ago, I think. And I include the Spurs there because they are going to have a healthy DeJounte Murray. And in addition to Lonnie Walker, who you can talk more about, he played. Not sure when this is airing, but he played his summer league opener on Monday night and looked impressive. How do you see Lonnie fitting into all of this this season?
like I mentioned earlier, I think he's going to have a shot, and how they go about giving him that shot, I don't know. I mean, but he's going to get minutes. They want to play him. They want to upgrade their athleticism, which he clearly does. So I think you're going to see him at some point get some good burn and figure it out. How he fits in the rotation, I have no idea. As we mentioned earlier, just way too many guards to really for me to know how that puzzle goes together.
Anything in the free agency that we've seen that has surprised you?
That has surprised me? No, not really.
I was kind of surprised by Jimmy Butler taking
the
trade to Miami.
Yeah, there you go.
Just because, Butler's one of the best players in the league. He could have gone to a team that's a championship contender. He's trying to force his way out of Minnesota last year. Miami was on, his number one destination, or was at least near the top of his list. But to me, that's not. I mean, that's an eighth seed. Why is Jimmy Butler going to Miami? I guess he likes the waves, or he likes, really likes Crockett and the whole Miami Vice. Yeah. He likes the Miami Vice jerseys or something. But I really don't understand why he went there when, if he just re-signed with Philadelphia, if Kawhi doesn't get 18 bounces for that thing to go in,
right.
They probably win the NBA title because Golden State might have got all those injuries. You can't say, well, take it out of a box and say Golden State would have been injured. But so if they get the same luck that the Raptors did, they win the NBA title.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very strange move for Jimmy Butler to make. He's had a very strange path to his NBA career, but that's the one that stood out to me is why is Jimmy Butler doing this? Why is he going to go? I guess he wants to be the alpha, but why is he going to go be an eighth seed? Because the East got a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Brooklyn's better than they were last year. Kyrie Irving's an upgrade over D'Angelo Russell. They're not going to be a game beater like they're going to be a season from now when they add Kevin Durant. But I don't get the Jimmy Butler thing. I think this Al Horford going to the 76ers also kind of surprised me, just because him even leaving the Celtics surprised me. I'm not sure in private everything that happened there last season, but
it didn't sound like a fun place to be.
It didn't sound like a fun place to be, but I thought Horford, I mean, he's always been a glue, kind of a quiet guy, so it kind of surprised me with the 76ers. I think it was a good move, and I kind of interested in what the 76ers become next year, because they really have remade themselves 3 times in the course of 6 months.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, those are the things that kind of really stood up to me.
I've been told I'm supposed to put my finger up when I want to talk. I'm still getting used to this whole egg crate room situation. So
it's understandable.
So the thing that surprised me the least is we're still sitting around waiting for what Kawhi Leonard's going to do.
Yeah.
Which on the one hand seems like, what is taking so long? But I think it's everything else went fast. I mean, if you think back to when LeBron went back to Cleveland, that was July the 10th.
Yeah.
And we are on July the 2nd, and it started on July the 1st. What is Kawhi doing? Where's Kawhi?
He's trying to figure out how to
but he is
update his LinkedIn page.
Yeah, he is the last guy.
Durant to Golden State was July 4th.
It was July 4th, yeah. When LaMarcus came to the Spurs, it was July 4th.
Yeah. The whole, you joked about it at the top, but the moratorium thing, I think that's probably going to be looked at to where why, if these things are all getting decided in the 2 weeks between the finals and July 1st, then why not just let people do it? It's kind of silly to have this wink-wink thing where you're not allowed to talk to teams, and yet at 5:01 on the day that free agency starts, all the deals are announced.
Mm-hmm. And some of those started even before 5 this year, 4:30.
Right.
There's stuff coming out.
It did make a lot of sense. Where do y'all think Kawhi is up? There's only he's down to 3 places. It's the Raptors to this point, the Lakers, and the Clippers, because those are only people with cap room. He's not going to the Knicks, which
right.
Yeah, what I'd love Kawhi to do is be I was going to go to the Knicks, but they filled it up with all these 1-year deals.
Yeah.
But he won't troll people like that.
It continues to be a source of unending fascination, I guess, just the whole story of what is going on with what he really wants, whether all the things that Toronto did throughout the past year to try to win him over, whether it was kind of making his family feel welcome, hiring the same buddy that the Spurs had hired to be near him, just to kind of make him feel part of the whole thing, winning a title. Does that have any impact on the guy who clearly wanted to be in LA from the beginning? And the choice between the Clippers and Lakers is really compelling too, because I almost feel like he'd be more at home with the team that doesn't have LeBron and Anthony Davis on it. Like, just let him be the alpha dog, but the quiet alpha dog who doesn't deal with all the other stuff around him. That Lakers team is just going to be a complete circus. We'll find out a lot about what he really wants and maybe what he wanted all along with this choice. Because winning, I still think that is the Toronto choice. Like, that's his best path to the. I say that, but then playing with LeBron and Anthony Davis, that's a pretty good winning choice too.
But it's the West. Like,
it is the West.
The East is a little more. Well, no, the West is pretty wide open.
And your starting point guard will still be Rajon Rondo.
Yeah. That's true.
There are no. I was looking at this earlier. There are no point guards left for the Lakers to sign.
No, just Rondo, right?
They might have to trade for one. Like, Rondo is the top guy left, and that's not going to work. Kawhi has sort of hamstrung all the teams that he doesn't go to, and if that was his strategy all along, that's like Machiavellian, just brilliance. Which, I mean, basically, he's if just the Clippers and Lakers, they're two teams that had tons of cap room. And they're still going to have the cap room after Kawhi chooses, and whoever he doesn't go to, or maybe both of them if he goes to Toronto, there's nobody left to spend it on because everyone signed so quickly. So, I mean, Kawhi, more than just where he goes, he affected teams that he didn't go to in a lot of ways because they are going to be kind of left holding the bag with cap space and no one to take it.
Some kind of really overpaid DeMarcus Cousins to do a mediocre job at center.
Yeah, DeMarcus Cousins is still out there.
Yeah.
The top names left as of Tuesday afternoon after Kawhi Leonard were DeMarcus Cousins, and then like the next name is like JaMychal Green. There's Willie Cauley-Stein. There's really nobody left. So free agency. This is news to nobody out there, but it happens faster than it ever has before, and Kawhi kind of. I mean, again, if he doesn't go to the Lakers or the Clippers, they're going to be scrambling.
So now you're seeing why the Spurs jumped on DeMarre Carroll so fast.
Exactly.
Take this full circle. Yes.
Yep. What is left this summer? Is there anything for the Spurs to do other than just sit back and watch Summer League?
I mean, they signed their 2 draft picks already too, so that bit of business is taken care of. And unless there's some trade in the works, but I don't think that's going to happen. Well, you know what? We could talk about it. I don't think it's going to happen this summer, but DeMar DeRozan is eligible for an extension starting this week, running through the start of the season. So.
And next year is a player option on his part for something like $27 million.
Yes, sir. And, you know, normally people in his situation would think about opting out of that. You know, you're over 30 and you're gonna try to sign a longer term deal to, you know, stay in the league for 3-4 more years.
This could open up a whole new discussion, but it's not as obvious of a choice for the Spurs as one might have thought. On the one hand, you would have thought, of course, they're going to let him walk and use that space. But next year's free agent class is not impressive at all. There's nobody really that they could get to step in to do what DeMarre does. They might decide, and this will cause great outcry, they might decide to extend him and just say, we're happy with him and we want to keep him around and pay him for the next several years. I mean, that's not going to be as outrageous as some fans think it could be. I think it's a legitimate decision for them to make as to whether they offer him a big deal this summer, and they have until opening day to do it.
Yeah, opening day.
That's something to watch. Looks like that will do it for this week's.
We're getting the wrap it up signal
of the roundtable inside the Black Egg Crates here at the studio at the Spurs Insider Podcast. As always, you can find Jeff and Nick and me on expressnews.com. And until next time, everybody keep it real.